In this review of the week's news, a dawn service is held for the 5th anniversary of the September 2010 shake. Residents are concerned about their drinking water and dancing to win the top title. This is CTV News Week in Review. I'm Jared McCulloch. This week marks 5 years since Canterburyans were woken in their sleep as a 7.1 magnitude quake rattled the region. A dawn service was held on New Brighton Beach to mark the occasion. A day to remember. About 200 people gathered on the shores of New Brighton Beach to remember the first of the big shakes to hit the region. The dawn ceremony looked back on this day 5 years ago, as well as looking forward as the city continues to rebuild. A special gathering for reflection.
5 years, it's a big milestone for us in our lives. Nobody's been left unchanged by this. I'm certainly not the same person I was 5 years ago. We've been on one hell of a journey, really. But yeah, it was good to have the sun rising in the background, and it makes you feel like, you know, it's a new day, and we've got some hope ahead of us.
The ceremony was attended by Mayor Leanne Dalzell and Associate Earthquake Recovery Minister Nikki Wagner, both Waimakariri and Selwyn mayors, looking back on the impact the quakes had on all the communities.
And there was just nothing where, you know, people could just come along, you know, and anyone could come along that wanted to. And so we thought, well, why not go to the beach and watch the sunrise and see a new day.
The September 2010 earthquake struck at 4:35 a.m. The epicentre was in Darfield, a shallow one of just 10 kilometres. There was no loss of life. Also present were the men and women from the New Zealand response team.
Very interesting. It was very, good community spirit around here.
He says today is a time for his team to look back at what they've achieved.
We know a lot more about what goes on now and how things are supposed to work and how to help people than we were last time. So it's a good learning experience for us.
Although this one was the most shocking for me, you know, the wake-up call as it were, I was out here in New Brighton when the February 22nd earthquake hit, and but of course, you know, I think the 5th anniversary of that earthquake is going to be very, very, very hard for a lot of people.
After the proceedings, those watched on as the sun rose from the east, beginning another day. And another day of recovery, 5 years on. How safe is your drinking water? Yoldhurst residents were concerned about drilling at a nearby quarry which had a close encounter with aquifers. But ECAN says there's nothing to worry about. Chelsea Daniels reports.
Environment Canterbury assures Yoldhurst residents that there's no need for concern after detailed reports of potentially contaminated groundwater from quarrying activity have come up negative. Yoldhurst residents have been worried that work at Winston's quarry is drilling dangerously close to the city's water supply.
When quarry operators dig right into the aquifer system to extract gravel, we're really concerned about what goes back into that quarry afterwards, and there are some horrific stories around about the control of fill going back into quarries after they've finished their extraction.
Representatives from ECAN and the council attended the Rickett and Wigram Community Board meeting on Thursday, where the public were there to voice their concerns to the governing bodies.
No, they're not, and I'm sure that message was made very clear to Environment Canterbury and the commissioners that were at the meeting on Thursday night. It was made very clear that they're not doing good enough.
But ECAN Commissioner David Cahill says there's nothing to worry about.
At the moment, I'm not aware of any medical evidence to suggest that there's an issue. If we have evidence of that kind, then certainly we will act on it.
Morris says there's a threat to the residents' health from silica dust from the quarry operation as well. But Cahill assures residents nothing's come up negative.
There's no evidence that Environment Canterbury has at this point that the dust is harmful to human health, but I can quite understand that it's a concern.
Cahill says he understands the residents' worries.
I think it's fair to say that quarries generally present problems. They're noisy, they're dirty, they're not something that people like to be near, and yet we have a need for road metal. if we didn't get it from here, we'd get it from somewhere further away, and that would make it more expensive. So these things ultimately come down to a matter of balance. I'm not saying the residents just have to put up with whatever happens, they don't.
Residents are calling for tighter controls on quarries.
To really monitor constantly, i.e. daily, what's going on in these quarries. Have people there all the time, watching, advising, and making sure that the environment's got all the protection it can, because once the environment's ruined, what are our options?
But Cahill says it's not a matter of changing their policies, just implementing them more efficiently.
I think we have the appropriate controls at the moment, but it's important that Environment Canterbury demonstrate that the conditions we've posed are appropriate, that we're enforcing them properly, and that the impact on residents isn't unreasonable.
Chelsea Daniels, CTV News.
By the year 2020, Christchurch could see a fully revamped Catholic cathedral. The historic building has been abandoned since the earthquakes, but is now looking forward to a new breath of life.
The fate of the Catholic Cathedral was cemented today after the $45 million revamp proposed earlier this year has been given the go-ahead by Sarah.
The building's really important both to the Catholic Diocese and to the City of Christchurch. To the Catholic Diocese because it represents over 100 years of history of the Catholic movement here. But I think what we've seen from public reaction in May last year, that there's a real fondness for the building and a keenness to maintain this heritage asset.
The Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Authority has issued a Section 38 notice, which allows the deconstruction of the damaged areas and the full investigation of the ground underneath.
The Bishop made it quite clear when we met in May that no bishop wants to have the responsibility of pulling down a cathedral. This has made the ability to get on and do the work that's necessary to see if we can retain that nave possible. We're all really keen to get on with things to discover, hopefully, a bright future for this building.
Bishop Barry Jones is excited the project has been given the go-ahead.
The people of the diocese are overjoyed. They're like most people, they would hate to see the thing come down. Now, we don't know, but the point is we're going to find out.
The nave, which is the centre of the building, takes up about 2/3 of the remaining side and which Bishop Jones says is the most precious part.
Well, Miles Warren says the interior of the nave is the finest interior view of any building in New Zealand, and who am I to disagree with him?
But Keith Beale says they have always been positive the basilica has been salvageable.
We've always had a good working relationship with Sarah. The case that we put forward we felt was quite a compelling one, bearing in mind prior to that we'd undertaken a lot of consultation with the city and with Heritage, so we were all pointing in the same direction. It was just making sure that we had provided enough evidence to justify our plan.
Construction will start by the end of the year, with investigations into whether the nave can be saved.
It's a year to undertake all the necessary investigations and get on with the planning. So we're kind of come at it from a really positive point of view that we believe we can save the nave. It's only if we find something completely out of the blue that would cause us to take a very, very different view of life.
And if it can be saved, Beale says the public should be seeing the full reconstructed cathedral by 2020.
We believe that we should be able to return the nave to service in about 3 to 4 years' time. Lovely. Yeah,
and then it will stand here for centuries to come.
That is the plan. That is definitely the plan.
Chelsea Daniels, CTV News.
Still to come, the Prime Minister visits, opening up more accommodation for the city. Welcome back. Prime Minister John Key has likened Christchurch to New Orleans, as both cities still struggle to rebuild after a devastating natural disaster. But rest assured, he says our city is in full-blown regeneration status, starting with one of the largest hotels in the South Island. Chelsea Daniels reports.
Should probably take a moment to take a bit of credit. I think the council and hopefully the government and Sarah and all those bodies that are involved have done a lot of good things, and as I say, you can look at New Orleans and see how tough it is 10 years on. They're not going too far, and we're really making tremendous progress here.
Christchurch's newest and largest hotel opened today, with Prime Minister John Key assuring his commitment to the rebuild is still strong. The Break Free on Cashel Street is now fully open for business, a $30 million project that stands in the heart of the central city.
Having gone through the tremendous pain and anguish of the earthquakes, we're now in the phase where the city is being put back together again, arguably bigger and stronger than it was beforehand, and we need all of these facilities from everything from convention centres through to hotels.
The 264-room hotel does its part to boost the local job market by employing 80 Cantabrians. But what does this really mean for Christchurch? Mayor Leanne Dowzell used the opening as a symbol of revival for the city.
Repairing what was already here and turning it into this magnificent place, quirky and funky, it just sits with a city in transition, and it's helping to lead the way. So thank you very much. I know that there are going to be many more openings like this as our city continues on its path from recovery to regeneration.
And Keys says the government's promise to Christchurch is still forefront.
The government's putting in $16.5 billion. We're now into the regenerate phase, and I think that's going to pay real dividends. As somebody who regularly visits here, I can see the progress that's being made, but I also understand their frustrations, and we are genuinely doing everything we can. But a lot of Cantabrians I meet do feel the momentum that's happening. They do feel a lot more confident. Yes, there are some unresolved issues, but those, as every day goes past, reduce and are resolved.
Last month, Associate Tourism Minister Paula Bennett visited Christchurch, and she says the tourism industry in our city is on the up and up.
We're certainly seeing a year-on-year increase, and this year in particular has been really pleasing to see the last 12 months and sort of nearly 7% increase in the number of visitors.
And accommodation in Christchurch was one of her concerns.
Accommodation is kind of constant, and I must say it's throughout New Zealand, but certainly here in Canterbury with your own set of issues around what got knocked down and what you rebuild and at what speed to make sure that you have beds for those that need them.
The hotel includes pod-style rooms as well as high-quality traditional rooms on the top floor executive level. Auckland-based Russell Property Group purchased the property in January last year, and Christchurch-based Dowman Architecture undertook the design. Chelsea Daniels, CTV News.
How do you feel about seeing middle-aged men sporting lycra? Well, he's one of New Zealand's most well-known actors, and he's back in the Garden City staging his latest show. But he's got a message to send to middle-aged men about lycra and prostate checks. He's a man known by many in Kiwi households, appearing in Peter Jackson's Hobbit and the King Kong remake. And now he's back in Christchurch, taking his and playwright Greg Cooper's extraordinary new performance to the stage. He is the middle-aged man in lycra.
It's a bit of an effort every night, obviously, hour and a half on your own and 10 characters and making sure you get it right.
The show opened on Sunday night as part of the Christchurch Arts Festival.
I'm doing 3 weeks at the court straight after we're doing the 2-week season at CAF too, which is very exciting. So it's going to be 5 weeks of one-man show, which is like unbelievable, but it's so exciting. I'm actually really enjoying it.
Hedlow says the art scene in the region is flourishing, but time is what's needed.
I think it's got a decade to go yet before it's really back on its feet. Not that I'm any foreseeable soothsayer, but, you know, I think the energy of Christchurch people is extraordinary. What I am liking is seeing people actually coming back to live entertainment. You can't beat it. Book for something at the CAF, anything. We saw a new production, you know, Greg Cooper's new production of That Bloody Woman in the weekend, a rock opera. Un-bloody believable. And Greg's written my play, so it's fantastic.
So now he's taking on a one-man show, a new challenge.
I have to, because otherwise you become complacent and you flatline, and we're very good at flatlining. Oh, let's just leave it the way it is, you know. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah, but trouble is, if it's not broke, it stays the same and you flatline. And so I think we need to challenge ourselves all the time.
In the show, it features an important scene, taking a look at prostate cancer. Hedlow is the face of this month's Blue September awareness, getting those over 40 to get a checkup.
In my generation, don't go to the doctor. They're really staunch. You know, geez, I don't want to be sticking anything up my bum, you know. Oh, no, I'm a man, I don't need that. Well, actually, it's changing. You need to. Anyone post 40, even before, you need to get the PSA and you need to get an examination.
Prostate cancer is the #1 cancer in New Zealand men. It kills about 600 of us every year.
That's about the same number of women who die from breast cancer. I know a lot of friends who have lost their fathers and brothers and who have been affected by prostate cancer. And so it's not if you can get onto it earlier, there's a possibility of saving your life. Well, there isn't a possibility. You will save your life.
Hedlow says the next step is to get the checkups made free, but getting along to the GP is the immediate step.
I go and visit Phil Wong every year, and I say, "Hi Phil, I'm here, I'm ready, let's do it." And whether I bend, squat, use the supine option, or I lie on my side, I don't care, as long as I get an examination, and I think it's that easy.
Getting comfortable at the doctor's is one thing, and for the show it's another. The performance will be hitting Christchurch for 5 weeks.
Encourage your mates. Any colleagues I come across who I'm working with who are post 40, and I say, "Have you had the finger?"
Awkward. Jared McCulloch, CTV News. Still to come, a TV, a PlayStation and a World Championship. 2 Canterburyans are taking off to Just Dance. Welcome back. She's in pole position and taking her performance to the other side of the world. A local pole dancer will be travelling across Europe as part of one of the world's biggest festivals, ending up at Oktoberfest in Germany. It's a style of performance that's got this 23-year-old a ticket to Europe, but it hasn't been easy.
I've saved all this money and I've sold almost all of my worldly belongings just to go, because it's like the dream of a lifetime to be in a circus.
And it all started with a conversation with a friend.
I was 18 and she said that she did pole classes, and I remember thinking I would always love to try that would be so much fun.
Tony has been performing this ever-growing sport for the past 6 years and has been teaching her moves to others for just over a year. And it's taken her to all different parts of the world as well.
I lived in America for a while, which was a really exciting experience, but I was a lot younger and of course with my parents, so I sort of had the guidance of them to look after me and take me everywhere I need to go, but now I'm doing it all on my own and I won't have that security there all the time. So yeah, it's a pretty big step, but I think I can do it.
Then she got a message asking her about the exciting news.
I've performed with Pearl a few times. She does a lot of pole as well, knowing that she was going to do this rolling circus. And she messaged me on Facebook and almost was joking, "Would you like to come to Europe in the next 2 weeks to come with us?"
So she got to work to take the trip of a lifetime. She'll head to Amsterdam next week to meet all the other performers in the tour. The Stokes Travelling Circus has been running for a number of years, an event that makes its way through parts of Europe.
I thought, I don't know, can I afford it? Like, it's such short notice, but then I thought, no, I have to. Like, no one's ever going to ask me that again, so I need to do it.
It's quite a skill, and it's harder than it looks. Let's just leave it to the pros. She jets off on Monday for her 5-week adventure. Jared McCulloch, CTV News. Have you heard of Just Dance? Well, it's played by millions around the globe, and soon 2 Christchurch locals will be heading to Paris to compete with the world's top performers. Here's Gordon Finlater.
This is Just Dance. And yes, unfortunately, this is about the guts of my dancing skills. Christchurch does have talent though. 6 grueling rounds of qualifying has seen the top dancers from a number of different regions around the globe book their spot at the Just Dance World Cup in Paris later this year. Avery Price lives right here in Christchurch, but will be flying the banner for the US when she appears at the tournament in late October.
Yeah, that makes me feel a little bit bad. I feel like a bit of a traitor. And the irony of it is that I'm also Australian, so I'm kind of beating, like, I'm putting away 3 countries for my home country. But I've been living here for 2 years, and I love it here. But if I had to represent Australia or America, it would definitely be America. And I don't have citizenship here, so I can't represent New Zealand, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Also Christchurch-based and representing New Zealand is Rosalia Roa. She's been hooked on dancing games since their inception.
Ever since Sing Star Dance, I just kept picking up the newer games as they'd come out, and Just Dance started coming out on PlayStation, and I've just played all of them as they've come out.
With success comes sacrifice. And with qualifying rounds for the World Cup working on a global time, Avery and Rosalia have had to get used to early starts.
Yeah, some pretty early mornings, if you call 4:30 a.m. early. Yeah, I would get up about half an hour before the competition started, and it was from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. for New Zealand. Everyone else was up at the same time, but on the other side of the world, it was like, 5 p.m. or 8 p.m., so it wasn't quite as challenging.
A useful tool for practicing, both girls live stream their dancing on Twitch, a website which allows them to interact with fans of hundreds anytime they're playing online.
Usually, after every dance they'll be like, good job, and that makes me feel a bit better. And the people are always pretty supportive. I mean, you get the odd one now and then that's like, you suck, and so that sucks, but I just that goes right over my head. And yeah, it's nice to connect with people like that. I really like that. I wanted to bring it to a different platform and show everyone that Just Dance isn't something you only play when you're drunk with friends or something.
With serious hours being put into learning the moves to each song, the best in the business know them like the back of their hand.
I actually was streaming last night and someone challenged me to do a song blindfolded, and I think I did pretty well. I got 5 stars, which was the goal.
That won't help in this year's final though, with the World Cup using a new version of the game, which will be released just days before the event in Paris. After both getting a taste of the finals last year, the girls will be hoping that experience will work as a platform for a top finish in this year's tournament.
I'd really love it if I could make it to the final 3. Because last year I made it to second place in my pool, which meant that I didn't make it onto the final 4. So it'd be really cool to make it there this year. But even just making it to Paris really is the main prize for me.
I hope so. It's hard to know if I'm better than I was last year, and also I get quite nervous before I go on stage, so I might not be eating and I might not be sleeping, and that would affect it. So the hopes are that yes, I can hopefully make it a bit farther this year. I'm not going to say I definitely will because I don't know. So
one thing's for sure though, they'll be putting in a much better performance than I did. Gordon Findlater, CTV News.
Don't worry. And that is CTV News Week in Review. I'm Jared McCulloch. Have a fantastic weekend.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.